I never imagined a table full of fine china and polished cutlery could feel so cold. The Stevens family dinner was a monthly ritual. Crystal glasses, linen napkins, roasted lamb, and conversations so sharp you could slice your dignity with them. I used to think they were intimidating. Okay? Now I realize they were just bullies in designer suits. I sat quietly beside my husband, Nathan, nodding politely as his sister Brielle told the same story for the third time about her high school glee club solo that brought the whole gymnasium to tears. Across the table, my mother-in-law Victoria gave me her usual once-over. The kind of look that weighs you, measures you, and files you under still not good enough. Zara, she said sweetly, the fake kind that coats poison. You studied music in college, didn't you? Vocal performance, was it? I nodded. Yes, I majored in classical voice. That's adorable, she said with a thin smile. Nathan never mentioned it much. I looked at Nathan. He didn't meet my gaze. Oh, come on, Brielle giggled. Didn't you say once that she used to sing at weddings or something? Churches and community events, I said quietly. I actually trained in opera for 2 years. Opera. Brielle blinked. Like in Italian? That's cute. The table erupted in light, forced laughter. I laughed too out of habit, not humor. Do you still sing? Brielle pressed. Sometimes, I said. Big mistake. She immediately straightened in her chair and grinned. Come on, sing something for us. It's been forever since we had a live performance. My chest tightened. Maybe another time, I offered. Why? Shy all of a sudden? She teased. Then, without warning, Brielle closed her eyes, tilted her head back dramatically, and began mimicking me. Ah, I studied Ooh Para. She sang in a high-pitched nasal tone, flapping her hands like a deranged swan. The table roared with laughter. Nathan chuckled and rubbed his chin like he was embarrassed, but not for me, for her. But he didn't stop her. You sound like a cat giving birth. Brielle snorted. Seriously, what kind of music school did you go to? I felt every eye on me. I smiled tightly, trying to push the heat down from my neck. That's enough, Brielle, I said quietly but firmly. She raised an eyebrow. Relax. It's a joke. Jokes are usually funny, I replied, reaching for my water that earned me a long, dramatic silence. Then Victoria spoke. You. No, Zara. In this family, we believe in speaking boldly. You should try it sometime. If you're too soft-spoken to ever make it in entertainment anyway. The words were sharp, but it was the way she said too soft-spoken, like I was. Defective that did it, Nathan finally spoke. But it wasn't what I needed. Mom, come on, he mumbled. Let's not make a big deal out of it. That was it. No defense. No, Zara is talented. No, she deserves respect. It's just a lukewarm request to keep things civil. That night, as we drove home in silence, I stared out the window, gripping my coat. Nathan finally spoke. You know how my family is. They don't mean anything by it. Really? I whispered, because they seemed pretty deliberate. They were just joking. You take things too personally sometimes. I turned to him. You mean when your sister mocked my voice? Or when your mother said I was too soft to make it? He sighed. They didn't mean anything by it. That's the problem. Nathan, they never mean anything because they don't believe I'm anything. Back at home, I locked the bathroom door and sat on the edge of the tub. The silence hit me harder than their words. I hadn't sung in months. Not in the shower, not while cooking, not even while humming to myself during a walk. Their voices had gotten louder, and mine had disappeared. I opened my phone and scrolled through old videos. One caught my eye. Zara Monroe, student recital Ave Maria. I tapped play. There I was, 1A2, standing under warm lights, eyes closed, voice rising like a prayer wrapped in velvet. I didn't sound soft. I didn't sound weak. I sounded like someone who had something to say. They laughed at her voice, but the echo they left behind became her fire. Subscribe because sometimes the softest voices write the loudest revenge. The next morning, I made coffee like a ghost in my own kitchen. Nathan scrolled on his phone at the counter, sipping from his favorite mug, the one I gave him when we got engaged. It said #1 husband in gold foil. Ironic. "You're quiet," he said without looking up. "Didn't know I was allowed to speak," I murmured. He glanced over. "Zara, are we really doing this?" "Doing what?" I snapped gently. "Discussing the fact that your sister imitated my voice like a joke, and your mother said I'd never make it because I'm too soft-spoken." "I told you, that's just how they are, and you're just okay with that?" Set the mug down with a sigh. "I married you." "That should be enough." "No, you married me, but you left me alone at that table." That day, I sat on the living room floor and pulled out a dusty box labeled college stuff. Inside were old sheet music, vocal warm-up charts, laminated programs from recitals, and one beaten-up external hard drive. My old voice recordings. I plugged it into my laptop. I hadn't heard my own voice in over a year, not since I walked. Out of my final showcase and straight into a life that slowly erased me. The first file I clicked was rough, just a scratch track of someone like, "You by Adele." I braced myself, but when it played, it didn't sound broken, it sounded brave. There was pain, sure, but also control, power, color. "You've still got it," I whispered aloud, and then I sang just a few notes. Just to feel the echo in the room. It was rusty, like a piano. That hadn't been tuned, but it was mine. I sang louder, deeper, stronger. For the first time in months. I didn't feel small. That night, I made a new email address. evamarlow23@gmail.com, completely anonymous. Then I created a profile on the artists. Underground, a hidden online platform for singers, composers, and vocal coaches. I uploaded one short, raw recording. No face, no filters. Just voice. I titled it Ghost Notes, Unfiltered Female Voice. Number 22, I didn't expect anyone to care. But within 24 hours, I had over 80 comments. Most of them said the same thing. "There's pain in your voice, but also strength. Who are you? I can hear the scars. And they make the sound richer. You need to keep going." One message stood out. It was from a user named Marcelo_voice, ever trained with a live coach. "I teach voice work for trauma survivors. You're rare. If you're ready to be heard again, let me know." Didn't reply for 3 days. Fear paralyzed me. What if I wasn't good enough anymore? What if I got laughed at again? But then I remembered Brielle's face. The way she tilted her head back and mocked me. And I remembered Victoria saying, "You're too soft-spoken to ever make it." They didn't just insult my voice. They buried it. But my voice hadn't died. It had simply gone underground. I messaged Marcelo back. We started sessions via video. He had long silver hair, deep-set eyes, and a voice that sounded like warm gravel. "Don't try to sing like them," he said during our first session. "Sing like someone who's been silenced and wants the world to know. I didn't just sing scales, cried through them. I didn't just sing songs, quat through them. And with every note, I stitched myself back together. One night, I told him my story, how my in-laws humiliated me, how my husband let it happen, how I gave up on myself. He listened without interrupting. When I was done, he said one thing: "There's a show casting next month. They're not just looking for singers. They're looking for judges with stories. You have both. If you're ready, I'll submit your tape myself." I stared at my reflection in the black screen. A part of me wanted to say no, but another part of me, a voice I thought I'd lost, whispered back, "Do it." They thought they buried her voice, but it was only underground, rooting itself in pain. Now it's ready to rise. Subscribe, because when they try to silence you, that's when your real sound begins. I stood in front of my bedroom mirror in an oversized hoodie, hair tied back, no makeup, the version of myself nobody clapped for, the one no one posted about, the one who used to cry herself to sleep in silence. But this was also the version who had something they didn't fire, Marcelo had been relentless. He pushed me through vocal drills, coached me in storytelling, helped me recover both technique and courage. Every lesson peeled back another layer of doubt. He saw in me what I had long buried, a voice that wasn't just melodic. It was true. They don't need perfection, he told me. They need a soul. Give them yours. The show was called Voice of the People, a national TV series known for its raw stories and unheard talent. Unlike traditional shows, they were seeking judges who had real-life scars and could connect with contestants. Beyond just notes and pitch. Marcelo had contacts on the inside. He told me this season they're introducing a wild card judge, someone who's lived the struggle, not just studied it. Someone with a story that makes people feel. He convinced me to submit a 2-part audition, a blind performance clip, and a personal story. No face, no name. Just truth. So I set up my phone, placed it against a stack of books, and began to sing. It's quiet now, but I'm still loud inside. You buried me, but I never died. The song was my own, a melody I'd written the night. After Victoria said I was too soft-spoken to matter, when I was done, I hit stop, then record again. This time, I spoke. My name is Zara Monroe. I was told I'd never make it because I wasn't loud enough, bold enough, or fake enough. But music isn't about volume. It's about voice. And mine? It's finally mine again. I hit send. Then I shut the laptop and walked away. Days passed. Then a week. I almost convinced myself they didn't like it, that maybe I really wasn't what they were looking for. But one afternoon, while folding laundry and half watching a baking show rerun, my phone buzzed. Subject, Voice of the People, callback, interview invitation. I'll reread it 4 times. Heart pounding, they wanted me for a second-round interview. In person, tomorrow. I barely slept. Marcelo told me to show up just as I was, not glamorized, not staged. They've seen thousands of polished packages. Show them the voice before the globe. That's what gets through. At the studio, the hall smelled like nerves and cheap coffee. Cameras buzzed. PA systems crackled when they called my name. I walked into a small black box room where 3 producers sat behind a long table. One of them, a woman in red glasses and braids, looked up from her clipboard and smiled. So, you're the ghost singer everyone's talking about. I nodded, nerves strangling my words. Let's skip the small talk. Just sing. No backing track. No warm-up, just me. I closed my eyes, took a breath, and sang the first verse of my original song. My voice quivered at first, but then, like a wave breaking free, it soared. Controlled, clear, honest. When I opened my eyes, none of them were writing. One had tears. The woman leaned forward. Where have you been hiding? Under the weight of other people's opinions, I replied, voice shaking. She smiled. Not anymore. A week later, I was offered the role, judge, national TV, prime time. They wanted to do a dramatic reveal. Underdog turned authority. The silent voice that now decides. They loved my story, my pain, my grit. There was just one thing I hadn't expected. That year's contestant list had just gone public. Brielle Stevens, my sister-in-law, was one of them. I stared at the name for a long time, stared back like a cruel joke. She had no idea. Still thought I was. Curled up somewhere in silence, hiding from their laughter. She had no clue that the same girl she humiliated at a dinner table would now be the one scoring her performance on national TV. Poetic. And terrifying. But I was ready. They laughed when she said she could sing. Now her voice holds their fate. Subscribe, because revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes it just shows up with a mic. I stood backstage, mic in hand. Heart thudding so loud I could hear it over the stage monitors. The announcer's voice echoed across the arena. Ladies and gentlemen, our final surprise for this season. A woman whose voice was once dismissed till it became the one that matters. Please welcome your wildcard judge, Zara Monroe. The curtains parted. Lights exploded. and I walked out into a blinding spotlight, into applause, into my reckoning. But none of it compared to what I saw next. There, in the front row of the contestant families, sat Victoria Stevens in a navy dress and pearl necklace, her mouth slightly open in disbelief. Beside her, Brielle froze mid-laugh. Her jaw slackened. And Nathan. He looked like someone had yanked the floor out from under him. I smiled softly, politely, like I always had, but this time, it was mine. The cameras followed me as I took my seat on the judges' panel. To my left was Devin Chase, a Grammy-nominated R&B icon. To my right, Kira Ellis, a viral indie pop singer with a cult following. I, the so-called soft-spoken wife with no presence, was now framed between industry legends as their equal. After the crowd settled, the first contestant took the stage. Not Brielle, not yet, but I felt her eyes burning into me the entire time. Like if she stared hard enough, I'd vanish, shrink back into the silence she preferred me in. She had no idea this was my stage now. By the time the final 5 contestants stepped out, Brielle had pulled herself together. Her platinum blonde hair was curled to perfection. Her lips were red, her dress shimmered under the lights. She smiled confidently as the announcer read her name. Next up, we have a classically trained vocalist from Charleston, South Carolina, Brielle Stevens. The audience clapped politely. She walked to the center of the stage like she owned it. She looked at me once, just once, and her smile faltered for half a second. But then the music began. She chose Rise Up by Andra Day. Bold move. Her voice was good, technically. Solid, clear pitch, strong projection, but it was empty. There was no pain, no truth, just notes. Pretty ones, but hollow. When the final note ended, applause erupted. She bowed deeply, already expecting high marks. Devin went first. Good control. You've clearly had training. I'd encourage more emotional depth, but solid work. 7.5 out of 10. Kira nodded. You're polished, Brielle. But it felt like you were trying to prove something rather than feel something. 7 out of 10. Then it was my turn. I leaned into the mic, steady. You're very talented, Brielle, I said, watching her eyes widen. But your performance reminded me of someone trying to sing without ever truly listening first. Listening, she echoed, confused. To life, to heartbreak, to humility. A long pause. 6.5 out of 10. The audience murmured. Victoria sat up straighter, eyes narrowing. Brielle's face was frozen in place, smile twitching. But I wasn't done. Sometimes the best voices aren't the loudest. They're the ones that have suffered quietly, healed slowly, and learned how to tell the truth with a single note. I hope you'll find that voice someday. I leaned back in my chair. Brielle blinked rapidly. Her hands trembled as she exited the stage. Backstage, I passed. Her dressing room. The door was cracked open. She humiliated me, Brielle hissed to Victoria. On national television, said she gave up music. How is she even here? She's always been soft, Victoria replied, voice icy. She faded again. You saw that? Crowd, Mom. They love her. She's trending. She's tunging. I smiled and kept walking. Funny, isn't it? They only see you as a threat once you're no longer afraid of them. Later that night, producers handed me my first press schedule. Interviews, podcasts, media appearances. Everyone wanted to talk to the surprise judge with a soul voice. Nathan texted. Nathan, we need to talk. Call me when you're free. I didn't reply. I didn't owe them a conversation. They had theirs at that dinner table. She entered silent. She left with the mic. Subscribe if you believe karma wears a headset and holds a scorecard. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of my phone vibrating nonstop. I rubbed my eyes and grabbed it. Off the nightstand, notifications flooded the screen. Hashtag Zara the Judge, hashtag soft-spoken but savage. Did y'all see her face when Zara scored her? Overnight, I'd gone viral. Clips from the show had exploded across TikTok and Instagram. My lines sing like someone who's lived, not someone who's trying to impress, was being stitched into duets and motivational edits. And Brielle, well, the internet didn't spare her. One user wrote, "Imagine mocking someone's voice for years, only for them to come back as the judge of your singing career. This is poetic justice at its finest." Another posted side-by-side videos, left Brielle mocking opera singers. Right, me sitting in the judge's chair in a power suit, cool as ice. The comments were brutal, but I didn't feel guilty. Not even for a second. Because this wasn't revenge. This was truth finally being heard. Later that day, I walked into rehearsals with Devin and Kira. The energy backstage had shifted. Contestants nodded respectfully. Crew members whispered, "That's her." Behind clipboards, Devin fist bumped me. "You've got the internet eating out of your hand." Kira smiled. "About time they put a woman like you in that chair. Feels earned, feels right." I nodded. "Thank you." Really. But even as we got to work, I could feel tension in the air. It wasn't mine, it was Brielle's. She avoided me completely, slipping in late to vocal coaching sessions and staying locked in her dressing room during breaks. Her posture was different now, less cocky, more guarded. It's funny how silence once used to belong to me. Now it followed her. The producers pulled me aside before the next episode. "We want to lean into your story arc a bit more," one said. "Flashbacks, maybe? Tell the audience how it felt to be laughed at. Now I'll be the one scoring there. Futures, if you're comfortable," the other added. I thought for a second. "I'm not telling this to shame anyone," I said. "But I'll tell the truth. That's what people connect with." On air that evening, during a sit-down segment, I looked into the camera. "There was a time I believed my voice didn't matter," I said. "People I considered family made fun of me. They told me I was too quiet to ever be heard. But sometimes the softest voices are the ones that survive the loudest rooms." The studio audience erupted into applause. Even the camera guy gave me a subtle thumbs up. When Brielle performed again, something was different. Her smile was forced. Her voice, though still technically correct, trembled. She tried a Whitney Houston classic, ambitious but cracked during the bridge. After the performance, Devon and Kira offered constructive feedback. Then it was my turn. I paused, giving her the silence she once gave me. "You're pushing too hard," I said. "It feels like you're performing for approval, not to tell a story." She looked at me, eyes glassy. "I am trying to tell a story." "Then start with the truth," I said gently. "Start with who you are when no one's watching." The room was quiet. She nodded slowly. 6 out of 10, I said. After the show, as I was gathering my things, I felt someone standing behind me. It was Brielle. "Can we talk?" she asked quietly. I turned. Her voice had lost its edge. "Sure," I said. "Backstage?" We walked down the hallway in silence until we reached a quiet lounge with no cameras. She sat, fidgeting with the rings on her fingers. "I didn't know you still sang," she said. "'Cause you never cared to ask." She looked up at me, guilt crawling across her face. "I was awful to you." "You were. You were always so composed. It made me feel small." I raised an eyebrow. "So you tried to make me feel smaller?" She didn't reply. I sighed. "Brielle, I'm not here for payback. I'm here because I finally stopped hiding who I was. That's it. But everyone online hates me now. They don't know you, just like you didn't know me." She blinked. "Do you think I can still win?" "That's up to you. But not as the girl who made fun of voices. Only as the one who finds hers." They laughed at her silence, till her silence turned into power. Subscribe for every story where the quiet one ends up holding the mic. The air inside the studio was electric. Spotlights cut through the dark, casting golden beams across the stage. Fans screamed from the upper balcony. Cameras swung into position like watchful eyes. The finale of Voice of the People had arrived, and the top two finalists, 17-year-old boy with a velvet falsetto named Elijah, and Brielle Stevens. Backstage, I watched the prep chaos unfold. Makeup artists dabbed sweat off brows. Stage hands whispered into headsets. Brielle sat in a folding chair, clutching her mic with both hands. Her expression wasn't the smug grin she once wore at family dinners. Was focused, humbled. She caught my eye this time. She didn't flinch, she just nodded, small, respectful. I returned it. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was growth. The show began with fireworks, celebrity, duets, and flashbacks from the season. I kept my posture poised, smile camera ready. But my mind kept drifting. It wasn't just about Brielle anymore. It was about every time someone said, "You're not loud enough to matter." Every dinner where I was talked about not to. Every performance I never gave because I thought my voice didn't deserve the stage. Elijah went first. His voice was liquid gold. His performance brought half the room to tears. He would be a star no matter the outcome. Then Brielle walked on stage. The crowd cheered politely. She wore a deep blue dress, simple and elegant. Her eyes didn't scan the crowd. They stayed focused. She stepped to the mic and said, "Before I sing, I want to say something." The audience hushed. I once mocked someone for being soft-spoken. I thought loud meant powerful, but I was wrong. The strongest voices are the ones that rise even after being silenced. I'm here today because she didn't stay silent. The audience gasped softly. I sat still, stunned. That wasn't in any script. She looked directly at me. "Thank you, Zara." Then she sang. Not to impress, not to dominate, but to feel. Her voice was softer this time, less perfect, more raw. She cracked one sand, let it. She wasn't hiding behind precision anymore. She was telling the truth. When she finished, there was a pause. Then the audience stood, clapping, whistling, cheering. Even Kira blinked away a tear. That, Devon said, was a performance. I spoke last. I once thought revenge meant rising above the people who hurt me. But real power is helping them rise too. Well done, Brielle. She smiled, and this time it wasn't performative. It was real. The hosts brought us all on stage for the final announcement. Cameras flashed, music swelled. And the winner of Voice of the People is... A pause so long you could feel the country holding its breath. Elijah Rivers. Confetti exploded. Elijah dropped to his knees, overwhelmed. Brielle clapped sincerely, then turned and hugged him. The crowd roared. Later, after the finale party, I slipped away to a quiet hallway. The noise, the lights, the attention, it was all a lot. I heard footsteps. Nathan, he looked older, more unsure of himself. "I saw the whole thing," he said. "I didn't know you still had that in you." "That's the thing," I replied. "I always did. You just never listened." He nodded, guilty. "I let my family walk over you. I didn't protect you. And now you're the one everyone's talking about. I didn't do it for that." "But you did do it, and you were incredible." He hesitated. "Would you ever consider?" "No," I cut in gently. "We're different people now. I found my voice, and I'm not lowering it again to fit into yours." A producer tapped my shoulder. "It's time to record your final segment, Judge Monroe." I walked back to the stage one last time, the same stage I once watched in silence, the same platform I thought I'd never deserve. Now I stood on it, owning every inch. They silenced her once, but she returned not to scream, but to sing. Subscribe because the softest voices write the loudest endings. 2 weeks after the finale, the cameras were gone. The makeup wiped clean. The lights dimmed, but something inside me stayed lit. Not fame, not validation, something quieter, stronger, purpose. I sat in a sunlit room in downtown Chicago. watching a 15-year-old girl nervously tap her foot against a cracked floorboard. Her name was Jamie, and her eyes were filled with the same fear I once had, fear of being ignored. She glanced up at me. "Miss Zara," she whispered, "do I have to sing loud to be good?" I smiled. "No, sweetheart. You have to sing. Honest." She took a deep breath and began singing a soft lullaby in Spanish, her voice trembling like a leaf in the wind. But it was beautiful, real, after Voice of the People. I didn't sign with the biggest label. I didn't chase every endorsement. I built something else. The Quiet Fire Foundation, a mentorship program for girls with creative dreams and broken confidence. I held weekly workshops in rented classrooms. We didn't have grand pianos or million-dollar studios just folding chairs. Journals and open hearts. And slowly they started to come. Girls from rough homes. Girls who stuttered. Girls whose own families told them to stay in their lane. I looked at them and saw versions of myself, but I also saw something more: hope. One day, while closing up after class, I got a call. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but I picked up. "Zara." A soft voice asked. "It's Victoria." I sat down. "What do you want?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. "I saw your interviews, read your story in People. I didn't realize how deeply I hurt you. You didn't care to realize." She exhaled. "You're right. I was cruel. I thought I was protecting my family from what I didn't understand. But watching you rise, watching Brielle find herself through your example, Zara, I was wrong. I stayed silent. I just wanted to say thank you for not turning bitter, for proving all of us wrong with grace." A long pause. "Brielle started volunteering at a local music center," she added. "She said it's because of you." That one hit deeper than I expected. "I'm glad," I finally replied. "Would you ever consider coming over for dinner sometime?" She asked. "No expectations, just family. If you still see us that way." I didn't answer right away, but part of me surprisingly didn't shut the idea down. Weeks passed. The foundation grew. A video of Jamie singing at our student recital went viral. She cried when I showed her the comments. Her voice gave me chills. Who raised this angel? More real than anything I've heard on the radio. She looked up at me and whispered, "That used to be your story, huh?" I smiled. "Now it's ours." One rainy afternoon, I walked past a high school choir class I used to sub in. Inside, I heard someone rehearsing my song, one I sang during my audition. I peeked in. A group of teens huddled around a dusty piano, fumbling through chords, but determined that the teacher spotted me. Her eyes widened. "Zara Monroe." She gasped. Would you come in?" I laughed and stepped inside. The students clapped. I taught them the harmonies, helped them hold notes, and told them a secret. Music is truth disguised as melody. So if you want to sing better, live braver. That night, I sat on my apartment balcony, sipping tea. Wrapped in an old hoodie, the same one I wore the day I submitted that audition. The city glowed beneath me. Somewhere out there, someone else was feeling unheard. And I was no longer just a singer. I was a symbol. A start. A mic handed over, not taken away. She found her voice, then she gave it to others. Scribe. Because the loudest legacy is built by those who once whispered. The dining room hadn't changed. Same long polished table. Same cream-colored drapes brushing the floor. Same crystal chandelier throwing sharp light on every surface. But the silence. That was new. I stood near the entrance, coat in hand. My heels clicked against the marble as I stepped inside. Zara Victoria greeted with a tight smile rising from her seat. "Thank you for coming." Nathan stood beside her. Brielle sat at the far end of the table, shoulders straighter than I remembered. I nodded once and walked to the seat they'd reserved, the same one I once used to occupy quietly, sandwiched between conversations that never involved me. Not tonight. Then food was warm, fancy, Probably catered, but no one touched it at first. Brielle broke the silence. I saw Jamie's performance online. The little girl from your program. She's powerful. She always was, I replied. She just needed a room that listened. Victoria's fingers tightened around her wineglass. I watched that finale 5 times, she said quietly. Each time, it reminded me how wrong I was. I tilted my head. About what? About you. About strength. About softness. You weren't weak. You were unshakable. I let the words sit. Then I asked something I never dared before. Why did you hate my voice so much? Victoria looked away. 'Cause it reminded me of my own. I gave up singing before I turned 20. My father said art wasn't respectable. One married into status, into rules. She looked back at me. When you married Nathan, I thought if I smothered your voice early enough, you'd blend in better. I thought I was protecting you from disappointment. But really, I was just jealous. The table fell quiet again. Brielle cleared her throat. I was awful to you too. Yes, I replied simply. She blinked, nodded. I know. I didn't need apologies, I said. I needed space. And a mic. I gave that to myself. Nathan finally spoke. I regret not defending you. I let their words shrink you. And when you began to shine, I didn't know how to handle it. I'm sorry. I studied him. The man who once whispered, just skip. The song tonight, babe, it's not the right moment. Every single time I tried to sing at a party. Now he sat across from me. Older, quieter, maybe wiser. I've found peace, I said, and purpose. And a future that's mine. I don't need validation from this table. But I came because I'm no longer afraid of it. Brielle reached into her bag and pulled out a folded envelope. What's this? I asked. An invitation. I'm launching a youth music camp this summer. In your name, the Zara Monroe Studio. My hands paused midair. I unfolded the card. It read, for the girl who proved whispers can move mountains. I smiled. A real one. Then let's feed those kids. Let's build that stage. Let's turn every mocked voice into an anthem. Dinner resumed. We passed dishes. We laughed gently. Talked about music, about the show, about Brielle's new work in the community, and for the first time ever. The dinner table wasn't a battlefield. It was a stage. They silenced her at their table, so she built her own. And invited the world. Subscribe, because every quiet girl deserves her final, flawless note.